I think that's a good question, and that requires to be investigated, and a survey would be necessary. But if we remember, there was a lot of misinformation and disinformation, and people were left confused. And that's the major reason why we've had decreased uptake. And I think we should be mindful of the fact that this was a better problem to have than having an unmet need, as is usually the case. So we should commend the fact that vaccines were available for those that wanted to have the vaccines. But we now need to investigate as to why the uptake was low. And that's basically because of misinformation and mixed messages. And that's what we need to drill down on, because this would have a negative impact, because people are talking about what happens with the next pandemic. And this should be part of our pandemic preparedness, is to ensure that people are properly informed, there's credible information, and we should create a safe environment where people with different opinions can air their views. There should be civility, and we should come out with a consensus opinion driven by science and evidence.
And you talk about misinformation and, disinformation, and this was a problem, during COVID-19, where, we had people like the anti-vaxxers, for instance. And one would say, when we continue, to see the presence on social media, it seems as if there's also been a resurgence of the anti-vaxxers. And, when people pass away, people are even attributing as such to those who vaccinated. Is this maybe one of the reasons why we are seeing, less and less more people are resorting to take their COVID-19 vaccines?
I think it's part of the reason, because when people are confused, they'd rather not do anything. They'd rather not take chances. So instead of labeling people anti this or pro that, we should come with a civil approach where there are differences of opinion. And there should be open civil engagement, and hopefully the science and truth will come to the top. When you label people today, when people can have megaphones through social media, it is unhelpful. Let us openly engage so that people can be properly informed about the differences of the opinions, the rationale on both sides, and make informed decisions about what they want to do in their lives.
Perhaps
so the notion of labeling people as anti-vaxxers is unhelpful. We should create an open forum where differences of opinion can be aired, the evidence can be laid, and people can express what scientific support they have for what they are purporting in public.
And perhaps, Dr. Letlape, if maybe, you can educate us as South Africans when it comes to vaccines, because, people continue to say, well, if you are vaccinated, this could lead to a heart attack, or this could lead to other comorbidities. When it comes to dealing with the side effects of COVID-19, is there new information that perhaps the public should know about when it comes to the side effects which come with vaccinations?
I think that's one of the key problems where people become suspicious. If you listened to Dr. Crisp, he said, we can't even be told what the costs were of the vaccines that will be discarded because of non-disclosures. So what is necessary going forward is transparency, so that pharmaceutical companies should be forced by law to be able to open their raw data to independent scientists for verification. If we create this secrecy, people become suspicious, people become doubtful, and there will be no trust. All these issues of lack of transparency, non-disclosures, create a trust deficit. And I hope the lessons we will learn from COVID is about truthfulness, transparency, and databases being readily available. We must also remember that these were emergency authorizations. These were experimental drugs. So we now need to know, now that we had arguably the largest phase 3 trials with people being vaccinated, we now need to be given truthful outcomes of what happened to all of us. I vaccinated, I had 3 doses, and I got COVID twice. So all of these issues need to come out, need to be recorded, so that we are all truthfully informed of what was the level of protection, what was the level of incidence of undesirable effects, how many people got sick, to what extent, and those that did not vaccinate, what were the levels of morbidity in those, so that we can compare mortalities in the different groups. This is time for transparency. This is time for the regulatory authorities to say, we gave emergency authorization. We are now asking for the data to come out from the groups that were leading the vaccinations, from the companies that are providing the vaccinations. Transparency, truthfulness is what is going to lead to regain of trust.
And Dr. Letlape, are we the only country that has seen a decline in vaccinations?
No, we are not the only country. But there's a severe danger of even worse uptake with the next pandemic, unless we conclude this phase of COVID-19 with clear, unaltered data in terms of what really happened with the emergency authorization. Are we now ready to go to where this can be authorized in terms of the norms and standards and become a properly registered vaccine, like all the other vaccines that we've had before? Now that it is not an emergency, it is now to conclude on this massive, massive phase 3 trial that we had globally.